The room was cold, not just in temperature, but in feeling. Everything was made of smooth silver walls, no decorations, no warmth. Just glowing lines across the floor and ceiling, like veins of a lifeless body. Solara stood at the center of the room. She wore a simple white robe, standard for mating rituals. Her skin, soft blue and smooth like polished stone, showed no emotion. She had been trained since birth to serve her purpose, to reproduce for the future of her species. This was not her first time, but something today was different. She looked toward the glass window above. Behind it stood scientists, watching. Always. Watching, they held tablets and whispered to each other. Cold eyes, cold hearts. They never cared about the ones inside the ritual room. Just results. A door slid open with a hiss. Solara turned. She expected another tall, muscular male from her own kind, emotionless, efficient. But instead, a human walked in. He looked lost. His brown hair was messy. His uniform was wrinkled. He was confused, but alert. He stepped in slowly, eyes scanning the room. Solara blinked. "This is a mistake," she said softly. "You're not authorized for this pairing," so ordered. "Here," the human replied. "Name's Daniel Reyes." The scientists above didn't stop them. The ritual would go on, mistake or not. Solara stepped forward. "You are to complete the reproduction cycle. No touching outside necessary zones, no speaking unless instructed." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "Wow, that's cold, even for aliens." She frowned. "Do not speak unless instructed." He looked at her again. This time, not like she was a science subject, but like she was a person. "You okay?" he asked. That question hit Solara like a strange wind. No one had ever asked that in this room. "I am functioning," she replied hesitantly. Daniel didn't step closer. He looked around. "So this is it? You stand there, I stand here, and the future gets made?" "Yes." He looked sad. "That's not how we do things. You're human," she said, tilting her head. "Your species is known for being inefficient in reproduction. Too many emotions. It's too much delay." He chuckled. "We call it connection." Solara paused. That word was not in her training. The lights dimmed. The signal began. She stepped toward him, prepared to begin the biological sync. But as she reached to touch him, Daniel gently caught her hand, not forcefully, but carefully. His fingers were warm. This wild era froze. "This doesn't feel right," he said. "Do you even want this?" Her lips parted, confused. "Want?" "Yes," he said. "Do you want this? Or are you just following orders?" She looked up at the observation glass. Scientists were watching, waiting. "I am following orders," she admitted. Daniel sighed. "Then I can't do it, I'm sorry." He stepped back. The red alert light blinked in the corner. A warning. Refusing the ritual was against protocol. "They will punish you," she said quietly. "Let them," he replied. "I won't treat someone like a machine, even if I'm in one." Solara felt something strange stir in her chest. He was different. He looked at her again, not with hunger, but with care. And before he turned to leave, he walked back to her and gently picked up the edge of her robe that had fallen slightly off her shoulder. With soft hands, he fixed it. "There," he whispered. "No one should be this exposed without choosing to be." Her heart, once trained to be silent, beat faster. Daniel gave her a small smile and walked out, ignoring the angry voices shouting from the intercom above. Solara remained in the room, standing alone. But this time, it didn't feel cold. She looked down at the hand he had touched. Her fingers trembled slightly. For the first time in her life, she felt something, and she didn't know what it was, but she wanted more. Solara sat in her personal chamber, staring at her hand, the same hand the human Daniel had touched. She had been cleansed twice, her skin scrubbed with sterilizing foam. The scientist told her it was necessary. Humans carried unknown microbes. But no matter how much they cleaned her, the warmth of his touch was still there. She clenched her hand tightly as if to trap. The feeling inside, a soft chime echoed, The wall slid open. Her mentor, a cold-eyed elder female named Azira, stepped in. "You failed the ritual," Azira said flatly. "Explain." Solera stood, hands behind her back. The human refused to proceed. Azira's head tilted slightly. "And you allowed that?" Solera hesitated. "He asked me if I wanted it." Azira's eyes narrowed. "Want that is a human sickness. Emotion interrupts duty." "But what if they are not wrong?" Lyra whispered. "What if there is more than duty?" Azira turned sharply. "You are showing contamination." The door closed behind her. Syl was left alone. Again, but this time, she didn't feel broken. She felt awake. Meanwhile, in the lower levels of the alien facility, Daniel sat on a bench, surrounded by guards. His wrists were cuffed. His uniform was dirty. One of the guards leaned in. "Why did you stop the ritual? Do you not find her acceptable?" Daniel looked up. "She's not an object. I don't care what your culture says. I won't do that." To someone who looks terrified, "You were chosen to improve our genetic lines. Your emotions are irrelevant." Daniel smiled slightly. "Then maybe you should have picked a different species." He knew what was coming next. Punishment. Maybe even memory wipe. But strangely, he didn't regret a thing. 2 nights later, Solera was back in the observation chamber. Alone. No orders. No handlers. And yet, she requested it. On the screen, a file was open. Human studies, intimacy, and emotional pair bonding. The footage showed humans kissing, hugging, laughing, sharing meals. One video showed a human male crying as his partner gave birth. Holding her hand tightly, Solera didn't understand. Why would pain bring people closer? Why would tears be part of union? Still, she watched it again and again. A quiet beep at the corner of the chamber pulled her attention. A hidden message flashed on the wall. It's being transferred. Tomorrow, to memory division. Solera froze. Daniel would be erased. His kindness, his warmth, his strange smile. Gone. She should report it. She should remain loyal to the system instead. She stood up and walked out. Later that night, Solera approached the holding cells. Her badge gave her access. She was considered high value, meant to carry superior offspring. She found Daniel lying on a narrow bed, staring at the ceiling. When the door hissed open, he sat up. His eyes widened. I had questions," she said. He stood. "I'm flattered, but you might get in trouble. I don't care." She cut him off, stepping closer. For a moment, they just stood there. Then, Solera slowly reached out her hand. Daniel looked down, surprised. "What are you doing?" "I want to try something," she whispered. Their fingers touched, not forced, not cold. She interlaced her fingers with his, a simple human gesture. But for Solera, it was like touching the sun. "I don't know what this feeling is," she said softly, "but I know it's mine, and it came from you." Daniel smiled gently. "That's a good start." Solera took a deep breath. "They will take your memories. All of them," he nodded. "Yeah, I figured." She let go of his hand, stepped back. "I won't let them." Outside the holding cells, alarms started blinking faintly, but Solera was already gone, back into the shadows. Back into the system she once obeyed, but not anymore. Now, she was planning a rescue, and this time wasn't for duty. It was for something deeper, something she didn't yet understand, but she would learn with him. Asterisk. Solera sat in the memory chamber not to erase anything, but to remember everything. A soft blue light bathed the room. Memory rods floated gently in stasis fields. Each one stored hundreds of years of genetic history, training, and commands. Passed from generation to generation, she pulled out her own memory rod. Her identity, her obedience, her programming. She held it in her hands, staring at the thin silver strip that had defined her life. Then, in a moment that would be considered treason, she placed the rod on the floor and stepped on it. It cracked, not completely destroyed, but damaged, just like the beliefs that once ruled her. The next morning, Solera walked into the learning halls where younger females were being trained for reproductive duty. A hologram floated in front of them. Rules of intimate contact. No emotion, no curiosity, no personal desires. The instructors didn't expect Solera's visit. Spiskaza she was. A model figure, a prime breeder. The girls watched her with respect. But Solera raised her voice and said, something none of them had ever heard before. What if everything they taught us about intimacy is wrong? One girl raised a hand. But the code says love is dangerous. Love makes weak mothers. Solera took a breath. Love makes strong partners. I've seen it. With a human. Gasps filled the room. Another whispered, you touched one? I held his hand, Solera replied. He didn't claim me. Asked me. He gave me a choice. The instructors tried to cut the broadcast. Warnings blinked across the screen, but the damage was done. Some of the younger girls smiled, a strange, warm smile, not seen in these halls before. Elsewhere, Daniel sat in his new cell, now in the transfer wing. Memory division was just hours away. A doctor walked in holding a silver device. Any last thoughts before we rewrite your brain? The doctor asked without emotion. Daniel smiled weakly. Yeah, if you wipe my memories. Just know, I'll still find a way to make someone. Like her laugh again. The doctor paused. You're strange, the doctor muttered. Maybe, Daniel said. Or maybe you're the ones who forgot how to feel. Back in her private quarters, Solera activated her hidden screen. It wasn't connected to the official network. She had spliced it into the undergrid using tricks she had secretly learned by studying human engineering logs. She typed, human concepts, love, pleasure, intimacy, consent. Her screen filled with images. Not just mating rituals, but weddings, birthdays, shared dinners. It's the way humans looked at each other with glowing eyes, even during simple things like planting a tree or brushing a child's hair. In every video, intimacy wasn't duty, it's choice. It was joy. Tears rolled down her cheek. She didn't even know her kind could cry. That night, she met a secret contact tan old maintenance droid named J212. He once worked in human cargo logistics before the treaty. She whispered to him, can you open Transfer Wing 3 without alerting? Central Command? The droid's eyes flickered. That violates 4 protocols, overrides 8 orders, and may result in total deactivation. She leaned closer. Please. J12 scanned her face. Something in her expression made him pause. His voice lowered. Upload your voice signature. I'll do it in 6 hours. 6 hours later, a quiet hiss. Daniel's door slid open. He expected another medical team instead. There she was, .syl, era, hair tied back, eyes sharp, breath quick. She wore a dark cloak and carried a disruptor in one hand. He blinked. You're here? She nodded. You came to save me? Choice, she said. For the first time in my life? Daniel stepped forward. For a moment, they just stared at each other. Then she handed him a breathing mask. We have to go now. And just like that, the human and the alien once strangers ran into the night together. Not for duty. Not for statis. Breeding, but for something more powerful than either of them had ever known. Freedom. Asterisk rain fell softly over the jungle moon of Lyra 7, painting everything silver beneath the twin moons. For the first time in her life, Solera felt water touch her skin freely, not inside sterile chambers or cleansing tubes, but under the open sky. She raised her head. The cold droplets danced on her cheeks. Her white robe was soaked, clinging to her skin. Daniel chuckled behind her. You look like someone seeing rain for the first time. Time, she whispered. They had escaped just hours earlier. Alarms had screamed. Patrol drones had flown. But Solera had mapped a hidden exit route, one even the system had forgotten. Now they were hiding in an abandoned human outpost, deep in the jungle. Power flickered. Walls creaked. But it was safe dawn inside. Daniel built a small fire, using old survival kits. The flickering orange light filled the room with warmth. Solera sat close to it, shivering. Her fingers curled toward the flames. Why does it feel alive? Daniel smiled. Because it is. Fire isn't just heat. It moves. It breathes. Like you. Daniel laughed softly. Well, I'm not as hot, but sure. She looked at him, confused by the joke. Then something happened. She smiled. Just a little. Just a flicker. But it was real. Later that evening, Daniel unpacked a food ration box. Solara sniffed it, confused. What is it? Human comfort food, he said. Spaghetti. I have no comfort. She said, only fuel. Daniel handed her a steaming bowl. Then let's start with this. She hesitated, then took a bite. Her eyes widened. This has taste. Daniel nodded. And smell. And temperature. It's all part of the experience. She looked down at the bowl. My people never told me food could be happy. Daniel smiled. There's a lot your people never told you. After they finished eating, Solara sat on the floor, near the flickering fire. Her robe was dry now, her hair loose, and slightly curled from the moisture. Why do humans touch so much? She asked. Daniel looked at her curiously. Touch means trust. It tells people I'm here. I care. But in my world, touch is only for breeding or control. He moved closer but slowly, gently. May I show you something? She hesitated, then nodded. He reached for her hand, not to take it, but to let her decide. She placed it in his. Then Daniel brought her hand to his chest. She could feel his heartbeat. See that? Ah! Every time it beats, I'm alive. And right now, I'm here with you. Not because I was ordered, because I choose to be. Her fingers trembled. Your skin is warm, so is yours. Solara looked down at their hands. This feels better than any ritual. It's because this isn't a ritual, he whispered. It's connection. Night deepened. Daniel found an old music player in the corner. Somehow it still worked. He powered it on, and soft human music filled the small outpost. Solara blinked. What is that sound? It has no function. Daniel shook. His head. It has every function. It speaks when words can't. She closed her eyes. The melody was slow, soft, like wind brushing a sleeping lake. She didn't know why, but her chest ached, not in pain. In something else, something new, Daniel stood and offered his hand again. May you, what? Dance? Don't know how. Neither do I. He grinned. She took his hand. They swayed awkwardly, barely moving, feet shuffling. But it didn't matter. Her head rested on his shoulder, her body. Trained for duty, now moved with curiosity, with trust, with warmth, with pleasure. At some point, music stopped. But they didn't notice. They were lying beside the fire now. Not touching, just breathing the same space. Listening to the forest, watching shadows on the wall. Daniel, she said, softly, what is this feeling? What feeling? When I'm near you, my chest feels like it might break open, but not in pain. He turned to look at her. That's your heart learning how to feel. That's how we love. Her eyes filled with tears again, but I wasn't made for love. He reached out and wiped one away with his thumb. Maybe not. But you're becoming someone who is. The sun on Lyra 7 rose slowly, casting gold light through broken steel windows of the abandoned outpost. Solara stood outside, barefoot, her feet pressed into soft moss. The wind carried the scent of wildflowers, something she had never smelled. Before, she closed her eyes, letting the wind dance through her hair. For the first time in her life, she felt alive, not assigned. Inside, Daniel still slept, curled beneath a thermal blanket. His chest rose and fell slowly. Solara turned back toward him, something heavy weighing on her chest. She had known Daniel. For only a short time, yet it felt like a whole new life had grown between them. But that fragile life was about to be crushed. From orbit, a patrol ship hovered silently. Hidden cloaking engines masked it from primitive scanners. But the crew. Inside were not here to hide. They were here to clean up a contamination. Inside the control deck. Solera's former mentor watched the screen showing Daniel's last known location. Prime breeder Solera has gone rogue. One officer said, "She is broken." Izare replied coldly, "Bring her back. Eliminate the human." Back at the outpost, Solera stared at her reflection in a cracked mirror, her eyes no longer cold, no longer empty. She pressed a hand over her heart. It beat wildly. Daniel stepped into the room, rubbing his eyes. "You okay?" "They're coming," she whispered. His body froze. "How do you know? I can feel it," she said. "The system never lets go of what it owns." Daniel moved quickly, grabbing his pack. "We can leave. Head to the caves in the west." Solera didn't move. "I can't run forever," she said. Daniel stopped. "Then we fight." She looked at him, really looked. "You would fight? For me?" He stepped forward, placing his palm gently on her cheek. "I would fight with you." Hours later, smoke curled above the trees. The outpost had been found, Solera. And Daniel hid in the lower storage room. Weapons were few. Escape paths were blocked. Drones circled above like vultures. A voice echoed from speakers in the sky. "Solera, you were chosen for greatness. Return now and we may forgive this." Emotional error? She stepped into the open, looking up at the speakers. "I found something greater than what you offered. I found myself." The voice turned cold. "Then you leave us no choice." Drones swooped down. Daniel fired a pulse blast, taking one out. The others scattered, then regrouped. Dadaswa El Era ducked beside him. "We won't survive a full attack." Daniel nodded. "Then let's make them remember us." He handed her a disruptor. The battle was short but fierce. One drone exploded midair. Two others slammed into the outpost walls. Then the final drone fired a stun pulse. Solera screamed as Daniel fell to the ground, motionless. She dropped to her knees beside him, hands trembling. "No, please." His eyes fluttered, barely open. "Run, Solera." But she didn't. She turned and stood. Above, Azera landed in a sleek black transport. Surrounded by armored guards, she stepped out and faced Solera. "You gave up your legacy for this." Solera's voice trembled, but did not break. "Yes, and I would again. He is nothing. He is everything I was denied." Izera raised her hand, then joined him in punishment. But before she could give the order, something unexpected happened. Solera activated the beacon Daniel had secretly repaired. A high-pitched pulse echoed across the sky. Moments later, blinding blue light cracked through the clouds. A human rescue. Craft descended. Izara's soldiers turned in confusion. The human ship opened. An armed soldier stormed out. Daniel had sent a message before they left the facility. A quiet signal. He had prepared for this. Minutes later, the enemy forces were overwhelmed. Izara stood frozen as she was surrounded. Solera walked past her.
Ow!
Kneeling beside Daniel, his eyes opened. "You came back," he whispered. She took his hand. "No," she said softly, "we made it through." Later, as the human medical crew treated Daniel, one offered Solera a strange stone. "This is a bind stone," the medic explained. "A symbol of unity. We offer it to those who've chosen love, against impossible odds." Solera looked at Daniel, then at the stone. Her hand closed around it. "I never understood pleasure. I never understood choice." She placed the stone beside Daniel's hand, but with him, I learned both. Asterisk, the escape ship flew through silent stars, far from the planet that tried to break them. Solera sat beside Daniel on the narrow bunk, the bind stone glowing faintly between their palms. It pulsed like a second heartbeat. Not mechanical, but alive with meaning. Daniel's wounds were healing slowly. His chest was wrapped in bandages, and a few bruises still darkened his skin, but his spirit was whole. Solera never let go of his hand. Not even for a moment. For someone trained to never touch. Never feel. It was shocking how easily she had come to need this contact. This closeness. The room they were given was small. One bed. One window showing stars. A soft hum of the engine. soothed the silence. I used to think intimacy was just dadas connecting, Solera whispered, eyes on the ceiling. But now I know. It's more than that. Daniel turned his head to her, smiling gently. What do you think it is now? She paused. It's choosing to stay, even when running is easier. It's remembering someone's heartbeat in the dark. It's breathing the same moment together. Daniel reached up, brushing her hair away from her face. I've seen soldiers run from war faster than you ran toward me, he said softly. That takes courage. Solera's eyes shimmered. Not courage. It was the first time I followed my own heart. Later, Solera asked to see something she'd only read about. Show me, she said. How humans hold each other, not for mating, but for comfort. Daniel sat up slowly and opened his arms. She crawled closer and slid into his embrace. Her head fit against his chest, just below his chin. His arms wrapped around her, warm and steady. Her breathing slowed. Her fingers pressed against his side, unsure at first, then tighter, holding him as if he might disappear. I never knew touch could. Silence fear, she whispered. Daniel kissed her hair softly. Now you do. Over the next few days, their closeness deepened, not through action but understanding. They shared meals, laughs, even old Earth music from Daniel's datapad. Solera liked the slow songs. She said they felt like floating emotions. At night, she would whisper questions. What does I miss you mean? Why do humans cry from joy? Do you feel safest when someone says your name? Daniel always answered with care, sometimes with words, sometimes with a touch of her cheek or a warm gaze. One night, Solera stood in front of the mirror in their shared room, wearing a simple white shift. Not a robe of duty, but soft fabric Daniel had replicated for her. She turned to him. I was built too. Serve a system, she said. But when I look at myself now, I see someone new. Daniel walked up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist. You're not a tool anymore, he said. You're a person, with desires, fears, and choices. She turned in his arms. I choose you, she said. Daniel kissed her. It wasn't hungry. It wasn't quick. It was long, patient, and full of every emotion Solera had never been allowed to feel. Their bodies moved in sync, not out of instinct, but connection. Every touch asked for permission. Every sigh was a reply. They didn't rush. They explored. For Solera, it was not reproduction. It was intimacy, a lesson her species had tried to erase. But Daniel had reawakened it, without force, without commands. Just with love. Afterward, they lay together under a thin blanket, her fingers still locked. Solera rested her head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. I feel full, she whispered. Not just in body, but in spirit. Like I'm no longer hollow. Daniel kissed her forehead. You were never hollow, just waiting for someone to remind you you're whole. She smiled, and for the first time in her life, she believed it. 3 moons rose over the new colony on Gaia-12. It wasn't much, just a few domes, scattered greenhouses and repurposed tech from old human freighters, but to Solera, it was more than land. It was freedom. Months had passed since she escaped. With Daniel. The galaxy still whispered their names, some calling them traitors, others calling them revolutionaries. Where out here, beyond scanners and commands, they were simply themselves, and others were starting to come. The first to arrive was a young alien female named Tavari, barely out of breeding school. Her voice shook as she stepped off the shuttle. They told me to give my body, she said, but they never asked if it was mine to give. Solera stepped forward and hugged her. No words, just warmth. Soon more followed, young males rejected for showing emotion, elders who had been corrected too many times, even droids who had witnessed too much cruelty and chose self-awareness. Daniel built shelters. Solera taught others how to feel. Together they created a place where intimacy was not a requirement but a gift. One night by the firelight, Daniel stood before a small group. Solera sat beside him, her hand in his. He spoke simply. Humans were never the strongest. We were never the fastest. But we've always had one thing others underestimated: the courage to love. He looked around at the tired faces, the broken, the shamed, the afraid. That kind of love can burn down walls, rebuild hearts, and rewrite everything they told you was true. Solara stood. I was trained to be cold, she said, but a single human taught me warmth. She looked at Daniel, then at the gathered crowd. And now, I will teach all of you. Over the next weeks, something incredible happened. For the first time in recorded alien history, couples began forming not by pairing orders, but by mutual desire. Some walked hand in hand through the fields. Others sang songs in languages long forbidden. A few even learned to dance under the moons, guided by awkward human feet and contagious laughter. Even the AI who once served silently began speaking with gentler tones. Copying Daniel's way of asking questions before giving instructions, Solara watched. It all unfold with awe. They were building something no program, no order, no system could ever create, a society born of pleasure, not pressure. One morning as the sun rose over the misty hills, Solara walked out into the tall grass and found Daniel fixing a solar panel. She walked up behind him and wrapped arms around his waist. He smiled without turning. You know, you're going to make this harder to finish. I don't care, she whispered. I want to steal this moment. Daniel turned and faced her. You've already stolen my entire life, and I don't want it back. They laughed then. Solara reached into her pocket and pulled out a small object wrapped in cloth. Daniel opened it. The bindstone, but now? Its color had changed, from soft gray to glowing violet, symbol of permanent bonding in Solara's culture. She took a breath. I don't need a system to tell me who I belong to. I choose you every day, every moment. Daniel's eyes watered. And I choose you. He replied. They touched foreheads, alien and human, and placed the stone in the soil beneath the tree they had planted together. That night, under the stars, Solara spoke to the new arrivals. I was once just a tool, a vessel. I knew function but not joy, followed orders but not my heart. Then I met a man who showed me something our kind was never taught, that pleasure can be sacred, that touch can be healing, and that love is the greatest rebellion of all. Across the galaxy, whispers began, of a place where former breeders became teachers, where lovers danced under alien moons, where a human and an alien had sparked not just desire but hope. They called it the Pleasure Colony, but Daniel had another name for it. He called it home in Solara. She just called it the life she finally chose.